people were willing to support the club, and we're so big in W on the one club mentality and trying to get behind a club as opposed to just the men's team or just the women's team. Hey everyone, welcome to Monday's episode of AFLW Inside Out, fueled by caffeine today, I feel.
Brought to you by caffeine.
I'm Laura Spurway. I'm with Meg McDonald, round two, done and dusted. Meg, you've come in here pretty weary off a trip to Sydney.
Hey now.
Well, you fueled yourself though.
I did, yeah. I fueled myself. I as we've seen, as we've discussed already, I think I've had the equivalent of 6 shots of coffee already. But
so this will be loose. Apologies.
Yeah.
That's the way it is.
We've heard your feedback. Lighten up. That's what I said. Too intellectual. Okay.
Oh wow,
Sorry,
you really took that seriously. That's all good. All right, so I want you to tell me about. I know we're going to go inside the SCG because you were there yesterday, which I think was great to be a part of, but you gripe. Let's get it off your chest first. Breakfast, airport costs, what happened?
Yeah, airport breakfast. Let me tell you something you already know. Food's expensive at the airport. So I went in, it just sounds like a formal complaint. I was explaining to Laura this morning that I was outraged by the price of certain things. So no, I'm not buying a $15 muesli cup. Ridiculous.
And what did you buy, Megan?
I went the 2 boiled eggs on a few spinach leaves.
2 boiled eggs.
Yes, and 2 boiled eggs. And here's the thing, Laura. How much would you pay?
Airport-wise, $10.
Yeah, no, it wasn't $10. It was $7 something, and then she hit me with and there's a 10% surcharge. And I was like, okay, that's $8, $4 per boiled egg, all good. And then I had to spend the money on a toothbrush as well. So
because you had 2 hard boiled eggs.
Yep, I was like, it's going to cost me the eggs and the cost of a toothbrush.
And
had
the
some
chewy.
toothpaste with me and the chewy.
Anyway, so Megan's had 2
Whoa.
hard-boiled eggs on her way to Sydney where, I mean, I'm glad you got to go. I'm glad one of us got to go because it was a big game in the scheme of this week and the W community and broader football community, I think. And it was Sydney that got the win, 66-42 over Essendon. Record crowd, 6,672 people. The club's previous high for a W game was 8,264. That's at North Sydney Oval in 2022. So, you know, there was the campaign here, come and support our W team off the back of the week, and people listened.
Yeah, they certainly did. It was really special to be there, and it was a last-minute trip for mine at least. And I had never been to the SCG before, so I was really excited by going to that stadium and to have women taking up space on that stadium. It was the second time that they'd ever played there. And I don't know about you, you're a Sydney sider originally, but every time I go to Sydney, I really associate it with support of women's sport. And I've been there to, fortunately to watch the Matildas a few times. And every time I've gone there as a player, the crowds turn up. So I was really confident with what was about to happen and what was about to take place. And of course, we saw GWS put the call out for, an attendance at the game. And it's long been true of the competition that AFLW supporters support the league as much as they support their individual teams. And we'll talk to doubleheaders later. So lots of that is about engaging your club itself. I don't know, what did you expect from the crowd? I probably, considering the numbers that we'd seen at doubleheaders throughout the first 2 rounds, plus the added impetus to turn up and support the women, I probably, I was hoping for 20 or so, but to double the existing record is really significant.
Yeah, I think it's a reasonable turnout because there was also that other narrative of would people go to watch the men's game, rightly or wrongly, because clearly not all of them are implicated in what's going on. But yeah, I think that's a reasonable crowd, and I think it was encouraging in the sense that it shows that people were willing to support the club, and we're so big in W on the one club mentality and trying to get behind a club as opposed to just the men's team or just the women's team. And so it's a step towards that. Yeah,
and I think, and this is true just generally speaking, but the crowd that were there were loud. I heard that on the broadcast that was really plain to hear, not plain to see. And that was what was special, I think, was that the players and the people that were there to watch them were passionately there, and they were really engaged in the week. And, I haven't been in that playing group, and I'm completely an outsider in this respect, but I'm looking at them and thinking they would have had significant challenges in the first few days of the week emotionally. It would have been a really taxing week. But we ran into Tanya Hetherington before the game, one of the coaches there, and she said they trained exceptionally well during the week. And then I think it was true that the last couple of hours in the lead up, last couple of days, would have been focused on the opportunity and how exciting it was to go and play on the SCG, to lead the doubleheader, to take up space, to celebrate, and to bring a brand of footy that's been really exciting for them. So that was certainly plain to see, and the atmosphere in the SCG was fantastic for the 16,000 or so that were there. And to see, I was going to say this later on, but I really enjoyed it. It was my second doubleheader of the weekend, and being at this stadium football and seeing people in like their reserve seat memberships. So you go and watch stadium footy for AFLW sometimes, and they block it off, or
just a section,
yep. Just one crowd. But and that might be great for broadcast, and you can get great shots of the crowd looking full. But to be at a stadium and you've got just spatterings of people throughout and really big clumps in other sections, I really enjoyed that part of it. I think it adds to the sort of stadium atmosphere and the sound and to say the word again, atmosphere of the game generally.
So the Bombers did well, I think.
Yeah, they did. It made for a really good game.
Yeah, early momentum, I think, was sort of very much with them, and that's a big occasion to walk into as well as the opposing side, but just couldn't keep it up for the entire game, and I feel for them with Maddie Gay and her injury. Like, that's a big one. Yeah,
really significant, because they'd been under the pump across both matches in the back half, and she's, an All-Australian player and defender, and has been really fundamental to their ability to defend the ground and to distribute the ball. We were speaking on air a little bit about how Maddie Prespakis gets used in the back half, and I feel like Maddie Gay can hopefully, or could have hopefully, been pivotal in getting their better players to stay forward of the ball with her use. But yeah, she looked in a lot of pain as she left the field. So, and it seems she just got caught in a tackle, or it popped out somehow behind her opponent. I hope it's not season ending. We don't have an injury report yet, do we?
No, we don't.
But that's a huge blow for them. I as you said, I felt the first half of the game, Essendon, coming off the back of last week, would have been really satisfied with.
Yep.
They have a young team. They've got senior players ahead of the ball. Maddie Prespakis is having a great season to start with, but I think it's the efficiency of Sydney that really sort of was true, and then became more and more effective, or the dividends were paid in the second half. When you have an even spread of people having a great game, sharing the load, then you don't feel as tired in the third and fourth quarter. You're not chasing the game. You're able to maintain the consistency and trust that your system's going to overwhelm the opposition.
And I know you're going to speak about the rucks a little bit later and what we've seen with some of the ruck work so far, early days in season 2026, but Ali Morfitt, great performance.
Unreal performance. Just those rucks that are getting up and over the top of their opponent. And Ellie Blackburn was speaking about it on the call. It's then the fact that their clearances are taking a more sort of direct line to goal, and lots of teams are looking to exit the front of the stoppage, but the grass that's being taken by some of these athletes is significant. And Ali Moore played a massive role in defence as well, so she dropped behind the ball, but she's having an outstanding season, and I might shout out a few more later, because I think the height and athleticism of those rucks is what allows them to play in that position, but they're finding new ways to influence across the ground, I think.
So that, I think, was a good win for sentimental reasons and for the groundswell of support for the Swans. But for mine, I think the win of the round was Gold Coast defeating West Coast 69-34. A surprise for a lot of us, and also perhaps a bit telling about West Coast in this early part of the season. So 9 second gamers for the Gold Coast went over to the West to compete in this game. I think it was 7-1 in the second half. Alana Welsh, 5 goals.
Yeah. What a performance from the second gamer, and not the only player. I mean, many players kicked their first ever goal in AFLW. I mean, we knew that the sort of youth and academy players that the Gold Coast Suns have were going to come good at some point. I don't know if it'd be as early as round 2, but a significant trip across the country. I haven't made that trip myself, but Gold Coast to Perth, a huge journey, and to get the appetite and the taste of have the appetite, but to execute on that and have the taste of winning so early in your season is really, really significant. So I'm looking at them and thinking, goodness me, the spread of experience. They've had a significant addition to the team in Anne Hatchard.
Yep.
So the way that she and Charlie Rowbottom can go to work inside the contest, you've got the athleticism of these academy players who, I don't know what you say when you look at them. I look at them, I'm like, are you 28 years old? Like the athletic development, their athletic profiles are extraordinary. So they're covering the ground on the outside, which I think has been a huge area for improvement for Gold Coast. They've had that engine, but so the engine room, but how do they work outside the phone box? And then the finishing ability of the second gamer.
Yeah, it's wild, isn't it, to be that young, and that's the thing. We talk about our competition in terms of development, and finally seeing those players who've grown up playing AFLW, and this is a result of that. So that's what we love to see it.
I think the other thing on that too is that what's exciting is, yes, they've come up through the academy, and we look at them in their first year and speak about them as if they're fully formed.
Yep.
But then you've got they're not. You've got, imagine Harris, Lappin, all of them when they're 25.
Yep.
So, I mean, yeah, it's an exciting future.
Interesting comments from Daisy Pearce post-match. Here's what she had to say.
GWS last week, Gold Coast this week have improved immensely, and we got the sense we had as well throughout our pre-season, and we can see growth in spurts, but yeah, having some trouble pulling it all together, and just have to accept that the challenge has been thrown down and we've got to go to work and get better.
Yeah, so that's a pretty honest assessment, I think, from Daisy, saying that you feel that you've put in the work, and then you go into the actual competition itself and you're somewhat humbled.
Yeah, it's sort of relative to everyone else, isn't it? And it's not an uncommon feeling. I think when you get interviewed a lot in the lead up to the start of a season, everyone's feeling good because they haven't played opposition yet. And the challenge before the West Coast Eagles were they made finals last year, so you've had that spike, and it's then the consolidation of that's the challenge going forward. So they've got a few things to get to work on. I know they'll know exactly what those things are. A small win. I think it was the second week in a row that Ella Roberts was tagged, and she, I think, looked to have fought through that really well and still had an influence on the game, because you can fight through a tag as a senior player, but she herself is 22?
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's the thing. Like, clearly everyone knows they've got to put some work into her because she's a star of that team, but by extension you then need other players that can step up if that's what she's going to cop week in, week out. And they're in good hands with Daisy Pearce. I think there's no one you'd rather at the helm if you've got a couple of things to work through. So we'll just have to wait and see how they go in the coming rounds. The grand final rematch, inside the grand final rematch, and I worked on this game. North Melbourne 44 over Brisbane 33. A scrap between...
Yeah, what did you make of how low scoring it was in the first half?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a bit demoralising for Brisbane to have just the one behind early, and then in the third quarter they stepped up 3-1 behind for North Melbourne. So they kind of kept them very quiet in the third term. But I think the damage had sort of already been done. And I wonder whether the result would have been the same if the Lions had had some of their players that they were missing in Dakota Davidson, Ali Anderson, Courtney Hodder. So there's some big outs for the Lions there. So I think you'd take some encouragement from the fact that you were competitive enough without having some of those players. I think it just shows, though, in the fourth quarter, and we spoke about this post-game with Tess Craven, that they just had another gear that they could step up to in the fourth. And I kept remembering your comments about fitness and how fitness is something that separates teams, AFLW teams, in terms of late in games. And I think that's what we saw in the fourth quarter. We saw their level of fitness meant that they were able to go up that extra gear. In comes Ash Riddell and Jazz Garner with plenty of the footy. They were just able to keep running, keep getting the possessions, and it just wears other teams down. And I think, if you can do that late in games as North can, that's what makes them so hard to stop. But, I mean, for a period of time I did think Brisbane was competitive, but it was a bit scrappy.
Yeah, they had a significant number of inside 50s to start the game, didn't they? And that's where, Hodder and Davidson really would have helped them, and you get that relief. I think fitness, I mean, they're the opposition. So Brisbane, in opposition to North's fitness, they've been among the fittest team. They're very physical, and it's what got them back into the game. I'm sure it would have been a real defensive battle. That's what made it somewhat of a scrap. And then I think it was a really dewy conditions as well. So you've got, one defensive system that is, won them back-to-back premierships, and they had the return of Emma Carney. And on the other hand, you've got Conan, Campbell, Grider, all Australian, grand final best on ground winning defenders, and that's what that makes it hard to score. But true to your point, as the game goes on, now we're sounding like a broken record. It's similar to Sydney. Okay, it's efficiency across a number of quarters, and it's multiple players who can step up when needed. You're not, despite their high possessions, you're not depending on Garner. You're not depending on Riddell to hit the scoreboard. You've got Belleretti kicked 2 beautiful goals late in the game, and so did Sheeran's been added to their mix across the last 2 seasons as well. So they can win in multiple ways, and that's what's distinguished them for so long.
And another player that we were speaking about was Erica O'Shea in terms of development and just finding a way to have these players who may not be as well known in the list profile of North Melbourne, but are still managing to develop under their system, are still managing to improve under their system and do the work when you might see, flashy Garner, flashy Riddell, look at their stats. There's so many players around them, though, that are creating this standard that this team has and that makes them so hard to beat.
Yeah, and that's the question, isn't it? What does Erica O'Shea look like in a different team?
Yep.
Still a very good player, I'm sure. But we've said this before, it's the way North, with their established players, can induct one new player at a time, can have a Blaheen Bogue play a season in the reserves or not break in and then have a debut season as an All-Australian. That's happened to them multiple times. And it's what makes, we go back to the Gold Coast win, it was what makes that win significant, because when you are starting a team or regenerating a team with 10 debutantes, it's really hard to get it all going at once without having the sort of critical massive players know the way already. So, they're going to be hard to beat, but they come up against an undefeated Bulldogs next week as well.
The story of the round for me is Geelong and St Kilda. More St Kilda for me. I mean, great result for the Cats, 100-15. So that's a massive, massive win off the back of their biggest ever W loss in terms of margins. It was also the first doubleheader at GMHBA. You had Jackie Parry, kicking 6 goals, 10 individual goal scorers for the Cats. But, I was pretty concerned about what I saw from the Saints in this game, and it got me thinking, what is it? What's going on there that perhaps makes them different to other teams? And we know that Nick Del Santo is the only part-time coach remaining in the W. He does have a full-time job that puts him in other capacities at the Saints, and I know that he's very popular with the players. But, after a performance like this, you've got to question what is it at this football club that means that they are not progressing, because that to me looked like they are not progressing.
Yeah, you speak to different players across the league, and, it's my experience at the Cats. We did an interview with Fox last week with Alicia Eva, who spoke about their addition of another full-time coach. So I think it's many teams are having multiple full-time coaches in their program, and there's we've already said on this podcast that players are progressing towards full-time, and it's how do we service them. So there's I'm sure, I don't know Nick Del Santo, I'm sure he's going above and beyond and is available to players when they ask, but it's about the around-the-clock nature of the job and the availability to service players who have different makeups in their own week. So it's never just one thing in a team's development, and they'll be looking to turn their season around, but it was troubling signs off a somewhat of a significant defeat against Carlton the week before. They sort of rallied in the second and third term, but the Cats annihilated them on the weekend, and they just didn't look like they had an ability to show up for each other, to know what to expect from each other, and everything's happening on a one disposal at a time basis along the way. So initially, you don't want to catastrophize after 2 games, but I'm sure they'd be looking internally as to what they can fix to create some better football on the weekend.
I was watching the game with a St Kilda fan, and when Amber Clark got that foot injury, they were like, oh,
yeah.
On top of everything else, we just do not need that.
Yeah, Amber Clark's one of those players who has the strength and skill to match it with the best, and she would have been one of the shining lights for the Saints, particularly following that, she had that Goal of the Year nomination in round 1. Really impressive. And, alongside Lambert, Patrikios, T. Smith.
Yep.
They're the players. When I look at St Kilda, I think it's your stars that are keeping you in games rather than your system at the moment. At least that's what it looks like from the outside. So it would therefore seem like a loss of a player like that is going to be significant.
If we look at the other games, and we'll just pick out some key points from them. So Bulldogs, as you mentioned, undefeated, winning Richmond 48-37. Izzy Pritchard, outstanding game, 36 disposals, 14 of those contested, 9 clearances, 1 goal. You mentioned Stars, standing up for their sides. She's a big one at the moment in the absence of Ellie Blackburn as well. And for Richmond, I mean, Olivia Warmaran still kicked 3 goals. Didn't get a lot of the footy, but when she did what she was meant to. Still kick 3 goals.
I mean, what a star! I haven't seen her play in person yet. So I know you were at the game.
Yep.
You were, spoke so highly of her impacts. But to go back to Pritchard, 36 disposals, 14. That's a massive game, and to finish it with a goal, I believe that goal was in the 4th term. I travelled to Sydney yesterday with Ellie Blackburn. What a treat for her! And I'm sure she won't mind me saying that we spoke about the fact that she's no longer. She's certainly a senior player,
Yep.
but Pritchard, Hartwig, Fitzgerald, they're not young players anymore. They're that middle generation. They're entering the prime of their career, and they're taking ownership of their results. And then they've got the younger players coming through as well. So Emma McDonald had quite a game.
Yep.
My cuz, and a difficult one to defend. Great finishing ability, different kinds of finishes. So signs are good for your Dogs.
Big matchup, though, against North next week, I think it is. So we'll see how they go
matchup,
there.
Yeah.
Freo and Collingwood, so a 20-point win to Fremantle, 50-30. First win over the Pies since 2022, although the teams haven't played much. And a lot was made of Bree Davey being able to play her first game in 682 days. It's been a rough road for Bree. But, I mean, I think Collingwood's they've got a lot of younger players as well who they're having to deal with this season. I think there's a lot of feeling the way there for them. It's going to take a few rounds for me, from what I've seen, for them to actually click, although it was a second half was a bit better from them.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And Bree returning will be significant for them alongside Ruby Slasher. We've spoken already about the balance of youth and experience across different teams. I think the gap between their most experienced and their least experienced at Collingwood is quite significant. And where does that critical mass lie? It seems to be in the less experienced, players there. But a significant win for Freo to respond from a loss to come over all the way to Melbourne and have a 30-point win. We'll have them right back on track.
Okay, so Melbourne, big win over GWS. I was interested to see how the Giants went this week after the win last week, but pretty comprehensively beaten in the end, 60-12. Tight in the first quarter. They were competitive early, and then the D's put their foot down, and another one of your beloved players, Kate Hoare, she copped the tag. That's going to be something we're going to see this season, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, she fought through well. I mean, it might have limited her number of possessions, but she still had a really big impact on the game. And I just love the run and carry and handball from the Ds. It's the best footy we've seen this year from various teams is using that, we say that forward handball game and bringing each other into the game, always having someone to give the ball to. That's really significant in the sport at the moment. And they've got, once again, a number of players that can finish in front of the big sticks.
Hanks Purcell, that sort of 1-2 punch in the midfield was on display too. So, yeah, as you mentioned, they've got such firepower there in the middle. The engine that they've
Hanks
got.
Purcell, don't forget. Hoare, Hanks Purcell, just huge.
Yep, massive for them. So another good win. Carlton and Adelaide, I was looking forward to this one. And, geez, it still shows you, doesn't it, how far the Blues have come and that they are a real threat this season. 50-23 over the Crows. Now, the Crows are now 0-2. We know they've got a new coach, so you can't underestimate the fact that they've had someone new come in and they're still obviously trying to find their way. But really tough game for their forwards, I thought.
Really tough game. And I've watching the last couple of games from the Crows, I don't think it's panic stations at all. They've been in these games against tough opposition. Their opposition are now 2-0 themselves. Shout out to Maddie Newman. I think she's having an unbelievable start to her season. I love watching her play. Add her to the Meg's favourite players list. I think we're seeing the loss of Hatchard and Randall. That's really huge for them. Two multiple premiership winning players, an ability to get it to go to work in the guts and to have finishing ability in front of goal. So I don't look at the Adelaide and think it's a change of coach issue. I think they've lost some really significant players and they're coming up against teams that are on the rise. So all good from that end for Adelaide, and another one on the board for Carlton, who have responded to their own preliminary final season with a dedication and a commitment that's really evident to see.
Nell Morris-Dalton settling in nicely there with 3 goals, and your mate Darcy Vesio, Mark of the Year contender.
Mark of the Year contender. I messaged them last night and said, I hope Michael Wilson was there with camera at grass level, making it look like it was really, really high off the ground. But, Darcy won't mind me saying that back in the day when they first introduced the same prizes for Mark of the Year, they were like, watch players run and jump at the ball now. And then they said last night, that's just so much easier than outbodying your opponent. I said, no.
Not for everyone.
Not for everyone, mate.
Maybe
I
for
do
you.
body every day of the week. They said they missed one early and then, grabbed onto that one and kept leaping for the rest of the day.
So 2 rounds in. So still a relatively small sample size for this season. But so far, what do you think's sort of separating the teams and the players?
Yeah, I've sort of mentioned it throughout, but the more I watch, the more I think it's the ability to play the game in 360 with footwork and I keep saying this, but an ability to release on your own terms. I think that goes to the athleticism of certain players that's really distinguishing themselves and their team. I am looking at players thinking, gosh, I was a tall at 177 centimetres. They are, lots of key position players are now in the 180, and then you're seeing the rucks of the competition, Wales, Scholes, Edmonds, Morfitt, have significant impact on the game because of their ability to employ their athleticism. I think that's really stood out from a contest clearance point of view. But I think when you see players, Malloy, Hanks, those sort of players that can do the Prasparkas, can do the 360 degrees as the game goes past and make the game slow down, and really access the corridor by hand and the forward handball by hand. Sometimes I think you see teams, they turn to their right foot all the time, or their right hand all the time, or they're in a position when they receive the handball and they're flat-footed because they don't know where they're going next. The best teams have numbers at the contest and they're running in waves. I mean, it's what we know about our sport in general, but I'm seeing it show up more and more with your Carltons, your Sydneys, Geelong on the weekend.
Yep.
Melbourne have been the best at it for a long time. So when they run in waves. They bring each other into the game. They've got strong handball. And that all comes off the back of, I think, an ability to be calm under pressure. You calm under pressure because you trust your strength and your athleticism, and you can get out of pressure because you're calm with ball in hand and you're able to get it from the inside to out. So, we're not rewriting methodology in terms of how you win a game of AFLW, but I think we're starting to see that gap between teams and players that have done it for a long time or have trained under significant pressure and learned how to navigate it. They're sort of, I think, already getting a gap on the competition.
So we've reached the outtakes.
The outtakes, yes.
The end of our rep before we sign off. And mine is this grab from Craig Starcevich that I noticed ahead of the grand final rematch with North, and we'll play it for you now.
Well, we're making it easier to come and watch us by dropping the price to nothing for people that can bring a friend along.
So the crowd that they got in the end was 2,983 at Brighton Homes Arena. That's not a bad crowd for them, but when I watched it, and it's a fine line, I think, part of me thought...
Watch it being that clip?
That clip.
Yeah.
Part of me thought, we're still there.
How
Where
did you
we're like,
take his
please
tone?
come. Please come. You can bring a friend for free. Please come. And I was like,
be cool, Craig. Be cool.
It's that fine line in the W where you're like, you need to come to enjoy it and appreciate the spectacle.
Yeah.
And you can be a commentator from afar and say, I don't like women's football. But I think until you go and you see the skills and the athleticism, you can't appreciate it. But, this is an Inception coach. We're 11 seasons in, and he's like, you can bring someone for free. Please come and watch us play. I'm like, it just kind of made me feel...
I looked at it and I thought, he's been given this messaging. I think he thought it was a bit, I think he thinks the concept of free is perhaps a little bit beneath the competition at the moment. But, we want attendance. So
we do.
So
that's why I'm like, it's a
sword.
fine line.
You're like, how do I even bring this up?
Yeah, how do I bring this up without seeming like I'm not having a go? But I was just like, I don't want it to appear like we're desperate for people to come.
Watch it. It's so cool. Watch it, please.
Yeah. I promise you it's really good.
I know. It's just like, be cool, be good, enjoy it.
Yep. What about you? What have you got?
Okay, I've got sort of the other end of the spectrum, but a similar point. I mean, double headers. We've come to the end of 5 in the end. Double headers for the first 2 rounds of the competition of the season. More than 96,000 fans have walked through the gates across the opening 2 rounds, almost double 50,000 that we saw last year. If you include the Australia v Ireland game, over 100,000 people have gone to watch AFLW games in the first 2 weeks of the season. Round 1 alone pulled in 51,529, more than the combined total of round 1 last year, or of the first 2 rounds last year. So a huge number of people have turned up to the footy. That has been bolstered, of course, by the advent of double headers. I'd like you to rate something for me, okay?
Go. Yep.
I've got 3 things to do with double headers. The benefits. What's the most important to least important? They're all important. The one club mentality that it can promote, so the sense that your entire club is turning up on that one game, record crowds and exposure to new audiences for AFLW, and the stadium football that we get to watch off the back of it, the impact of actually playing on those stadiums on the, inverted commas, quality of the game.
Okay, so in terms of the football, I would say it's the stadium football and the quality. That's the one thing you would feel as someone who really watches the game, supports the game and plays the game. But in terms of the overall, how are we judging AFLW in the broader community, it's the crowds and the exposure, because there is so much scrutiny on W for how many people are watching it, how many people are going to the games, does anyone watch it, does anyone go to the games? And so as much as I think, the football purists would appreciate that the standard of play is better when you go to these better grounds, unfortunately we still live in a world where it's judged so much by, well, how many people are going, how many tickets are being sold. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's all of it. It struck me, or that putting that to you like that struck me off the back of stadium football. And when I was at the games across the last 2 weekends, I thought the transition rate, and that is one of the KPIs that the league looks to in terms of the progression of the game itself. Transition rate from defensive half to forward 50, the eye test tells me that's significantly impacted. I think the efficiency of disposal is really increased when you get to play on a protected ground. You could argue that we spoke about the reasons for the grand final rematch being scrappy. Yeah. That's played at an exposed ground, really slippery conditions. So that's part of it. They would have had a hot contest anywhere. But I'm with you. Of course, the exposure of our game is important. Part of me, to your outtake, thinks, well, I know it's cool. I'm here. I mean, that's possibly speaking to my now being out of the game, but I'd love more of them. I think when we're trying something season on season, that one has to have had a massive tick. I would love to see if we could orchestrate one across the next couple of weeks for finals. That would be great, but I think possibly the whole industry is a bit like there's been a lot of change, a lot's happening. It may not happen. We really front-ended those points in the season that we want to look to celebrate. We've got Indigenous rounds across the next 2 rounds of football. So that's another, reason to celebrate, and we'll have a beautiful sense of celebration as part of the football in the coming weeks. So how do we maintain the attendance and the excitement around the game following that?
That'll be a challenge. And I think without the double headers, we don't expect to see those same crowds, but hopefully it's exposed new people. That's the point. It's exposed new people to W, people who may not otherwise have gone to the games and now think, you know what? That's worth going to. Family-friendly environment, family-friendly time slots, bring everybody. But like I said, I just bring someone for free. it's
a callback to when it was free to go.
I know. But, I agree. Double headers a win. Love to see more of them next year. Meg Mac, well done getting through on 6 shots of caffeine. Well done.
Shout out to Jack, our producer. A few more outtakes.
Good luck, Jack. Around. Good luck, Jack. Godspeed, Wayne. Waiting through all of that. We will talk to you Friday. You can listen or watch us on YouTube, Instagram, or wherever you get your podcasts. Just search AFLW Inside Out. We're out. Speak to you Friday.